It's the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers, your host, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. And this episode, we're talking about December of 2025. We made it. We made it through the year by the hair of our chinny chin chin. And I have to say, this month is kind of end the way the year started. So we're bookending with big events, but what else can we expect? I want to give a massive thank you to those who support this podcast. We don't take advertising dollars. We don't have corporate sponsorships, not because we can't, but because we don't want to. We don't want to compromise. I don't want to compromise. I want to bring you the very best information I can every single week to help you grow, become inspired, self-actualize, find your own power, and frankly, there's not very many corporations who are dedicated to sustainability, self actualization, human determination, and self determination. So we support you through the support of our listeners. And if you've been wondering how you can support this podcast, check out the link in the show notes. The Awake Space community is there for the ups and the downs, the all arounds, and it's a place to just check in when the crazy sauce is being slathered on a little too thick. We laugh, we cry, we get through it together. So December of 2025 is an interesting month. If you're wondering what's up in the headlines, you can check out that segment sponsored by magazine subscribers in the deep dives and horoscopes tier and up in the Patreon. That's patron exclusive content. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to talk to you about what's up on deck this month. I want to empower you guys on a personal level because the headlines don't talk about everything. It's like when you study history, right? They talk about the wars and the battles and this king and that king, but there was a whole lot of life going on you didn't hear about. Like, what were people cooking? What were they wearing? How were they reaching their goals and their aspirations? Did they learn a new trick in gathering herbs? Did they come up with a new recipe? Were they weaving? What were they weaving? What were the patterns? What was it like when somebody just discovered how to do a twill? There's a lot of life that doesn't get discussed in the headlines. And that's what we're going to talk about here and every week on the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. So whether we're going to work together, taking the kids to school, doing a little bit of holiday prep, maybe we're decorating today, going to the gym, taking a brisk walk in the cold in the upper latitudes, or looking at the temperature jump in the southern hemisphere. Whatever we're doing, we're going to do it together. So get your tea, get your coffee, get your matcha, get your iced tea, your Red Bull, your H2O, because we're going to take on the week together. So the last two episodes, I talked to Jupiter and Saturn, and in the Patreon, you'll get your guide sheet on dealing with those in your natal chart. So if you've been doing the Using Your Astrology process in this series here on the Awake Space, make sure you go check out the past episodes, get caught up before moving forward. The next episode that's coming out in the Using Your Astrology series is Uranus or Uranus. Okay, I made a joke at the last episode that we're going to be looking at Uranus. I know. It's silly. Careful. Don't snort your coffee. Keep your eyes on the road. All right. I thought this episode we'd talk about how we wind up the year and the mindset necessary to walk into 2026. There's still time to sign up for the 2026 year ahead predictions and prep. I'm not just giving predictions because I think it gets a little heavy. I know it gets a little heavy for me. And so I want to have you prepared emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and physically. You know, if there's ways you can prepare for the weather or for the economy, things like that. So that'll make me feel better because I'm empowering you. Sometimes it's heavy and you're like, oh my God, what does that mean 2026 is going to be like? Well, it's starts like it's still 2025. Okay, we end December, we end the month with a big event. We've bookended 2025 with a big event on the first of the year and a big event on the 31st of the year. And that kind of starts the tone for 2026 in the outer world. In the inner world, that's up to us. That's our mindset. And so that's what I really want to focus on today is looking at the mindset that gets us through the end of the year, gets us through December, and what we need to go forward. Okay. And that's in big part, a lot more detail is going to be given in the 2026 year ahead on December 20th, 2025. That's my follow up. I already gave the predictions in June. The follow up is happening in December, and I'll be filling in the blanks quite a lot. I waited this year because I was like, ooh, October, November, December have an awful lot going on in 2025. And I wanted to see how that played out before amending the 2026 predictions. I flesh them out. I don't change them. I just expand on what I'm seeing because, the future isn't set in stone. It's based on every decision we make. That's why it's so important to be empowered. I spend so much time trying to educate you outside of your social cultural conditioning. There are all kinds of people, especially in academics, who will argue the nature of humans or man. They love to say the nature of man. It is the nature of man to be violent. 'Tis the nature of man to be an apex predator. 'Tis an apex predator's purview to descend upon the weak. You've got the alpha male, which none of that's actually academic to start with, and it's very much filled with cognitive bias. And it's a certain point of view that we don't have to own. Okay? We don't have to own that we're weaker. We don't have to own that they're stronger. We don't have to own it is the nature of human beings to be a certain way when the people who did those quote unquote studies did not ever once ask the most important questions of all of, am I biased in my observations? Because there's no way to be an impartial observer. You're always going to have some kind of bias. But you can learn how to recognize that. Go, you know what? I'm biased in this kind of way. I'm going to step back. I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to try to look at this through a little different lens. You can. You can. We move through December watching a dying system react in its death throes. There's going to be some significant world events, and some of that impacts some of us personally. Most of us, however, are dealing with climate, weather. Most of us are dealing with supply chain, inflation, price gouging, supply on any kind of special ingredients or special food needs. Those are the stresses we have to deal with as we move through December. But everything else can roll along just fine, and you can still be the person who gets the last can of whatever it is you need at the store. I remember years and years ago, I was out with a friend shopping for our kids, and this is many years ago now. This is like 25 years ago almost. And everywhere we went, I found exactly what I needed. I found it on sale, and I got enough. And every time they went to find something, they couldn't find theirs. Okay. And we even went out to lunch, and I went to order my sandwich, and they, wow, you're in luck. It's the last one of this. We have all the supplies for that. There's no more after you. And she went up to order totally different sandwich than I was having, and they were out of it. And she was really frustrated. She goes, why is it working out for you? Which, as if I somehow had made her miss out on things, even though we were looking for different things. It's not like we were competing. She didn't stay a friend very long, by the way, because the jealousy was a weird thing. And I looked at her and I was like, I don't know. Maybe it's just working out because they expect it to work out. And we'd been friends long enough that I knew she expected things to never work in her favor. How we held our expectations was so obvious in that moment, all the way down to what we ordered for lunch. I was prepared for them to be out of the sandwich I wanted, and I would have ordered something else, and I had a backup plan. I was ready for the items I had been looking for to be sold out, and I had a backup plan. My happiness did not depend on the success or failure of my shopping mission. It did for her. It did for her. She attached herself to these outcomes. And then would be like, well, why do you get what you want? Which, as adults, and I was in my early 30s, this person was a few years older than me. They were pushing 40. And I just thought that was a very strange reaction for somebody of the age we were. We were grown adults. And I said, I don't know, other than I've learned to expect that things work out for me. That's how I live my life. Things work out for me. And even if I don't get exactly what I want, I will want exactly what I get. And she didn't like that answer. And many of you probably won't either. But I can tell you, it makes life significantly easier when we hold a good attitude. Okay. Having ourselves attached to a physical outcome, the right brand of clothes or the lip gloss, or having a specific look on things, a brand, worrying about what the neighbors think, worrying about how we appear on screen, all those superficial, externalized wants are going to make our lives a lot more difficult as we move forward. Whereas if you can expect to get what you want, but want what you get, life is a lot smoother and a lot easier. It isn't about giving up on a dream. It isn't about settling for second best. It's not even about fucking compromise. It's about not being attached to physical outcomes, period. And I say that because, back in 2024, when I did the 2025 year ahead predictions, I said the holidays at the end of 2025 would be somber. We may not be able to go on that vacay. The cruise might get canceled. Flights might be grounded. We may not be able to go to sunnier weather. We may have to deal with what we've got. It can still be a good holiday. Somber doesn't mean bad. It's just quieter. It might be the perfect time to roast chestnuts in an open fire. Make sure you score the shells. By scoring, I mean you take a knife very safely and you cut the shell. You do not want exploding chestnuts in your fire. You really don't. You probably want to do them in your oven, but make sure you poke holes in those shells. I'll tell you what happens if you don't. And I'd done it before. Oh my God, this is like 10 years ago. Missed a couple when I was scoring them for the oven when I was roasting chestnuts. And it sounded like a shotgun was going off in my oven. Ping, pong. And it made for a really good memory. Something silly, something funny, something dumb. We can have a really great winter holiday season without being so attached to needing things to be a certain way. Because at the end of our lives, we're not going to count the handbags or the shoes. We're not going to count the designer jeans or the flashy car or the house. We're going to remember the times we laughed, the times we cried, the people who made an impact. We're going to remember the worst of times and the best of times. And we're going to remember the people. And that's what we want to put our focus on as we move forward this month. I thought I'd talk, before we get into December too much, I thought I'd talk a little bit about why Mercury stationing direct hasn't exactly improved conditions for everybody. because it wasn't Mercury being retrograde to start with. There is an overemphasis on retrograde motion in popular astrology because there's a lack of understanding of what it is. And this month is after December 10th, the only planet retrograde will be Jupiter. Everything else will be in direct motion, and we're kind of lucky Jupiter is the one retrograde because it's holding us back from flinging forward into the future without breaks. Mercury is in a grand trine with Jupiter and Saturn right now and moving back into a grand trine with Neptune, which stations direct on the 10th. With Mercury in Scorpio, dredging up that which needs to be transmuted inside of us. Our mindset matters. It's so easy to blame everybody else. It's so easy to blame everybody else. But how many times do we set ourselves up for disappointment? And I'm not saying victim blaming, okay? But if you know somebody it lets you down 90% of the time, why would you set yourself up to be disappointed again? We have to take responsibility and accountability for our own mindset. And I'm not talking about people being super, super abusive and the patterns there. I'm talking about when you know, and this could be a family member. We could have somebody who promises you the moon, and then they get busy, and then they forget. And if you have something that's time dependent, it's probably not a good idea to rely on that person. Okay, but you do it over and over and over because you're giving them a chance, blah, blah, blah. We can love them and either hire someone to do the job, or we can find somebody more reliable if we need help with something, or do it ourselves. And because the waiting and the being let down is more costly than taking the time to do it ourselves, right? Right. With Mercury in trine to Jupiter and Saturn, it's really about taking responsibility for our mindset and looking at the patterns. These could be patterns we learned from family. These could be socially indoctrinated patterns. These could be culturally indoctrinated patterns. This could be all of it. But it's still up to us to deconstruct and reconstruct forward. And if you see the pattern, you can fix the pattern. Okay. If you see the pattern, you can fix the pattern. And that's really what's up on deck right now. And guess what? Sometimes identifying the patterns hurts. Sometimes seeing that you are being Charlie Brown to a Lucy with the football hurts. It hurts enough to be let down by somebody else, but when you realize you've been letting yourself down, that is painful. So I get it if it stings. I get it if things are hard, but don't stop in that spot. You have this opportunity right now to look at where you can go next. Okay, if I have this pattern and I want to break this pattern, what happens when I break this pattern? Where do I go to next? What am I doing? If I'm not compromising anymore, what is it I really want to achieve? How am I fully authentic in myself? These are all important journal questions. Because the longer we sit pointing out at everybody else who gets in our way, doesn't listen, doesn't get things done, doesn't do their end of the deal, doesn't meet their end of the bargain, doesn't show up, turns up last minute, makes you waste energy, you're blaming all that? Why aren't you fixing the problem? Why do you keep relying on that? Why do you keep setting yourself up for the same event over and over and over? Because you don't want the drama, but there's still drama. So, where are you going in life without compromise? What does fully authentic mean? Like, how can you be authentic if you don't know what it means? That's why I teach astrology, not as a tool for labeling, but as a tool for personal growth, self-expression, and self-determination, self-actualization, the becoming of you, which is, by the way, a lifelong process. This grand trine in water ain't taking no prisoners. And it is important to do more than just excavate into the problem, but ask yourself, okay, Where am I going to next? What am I building forward? Who will I become? Who do I want to be? And how long do I want to spend complaining about it instead of doing it? Because sometimes we do want to complain. Sometimes we do want to be like, no, I really need to have a bitch session about this because we're human and that's okay. And I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to take Tuesday to be in a shitty mood. I am just going to be in a shitty mood on Tuesday. I'll be back at it on Wednesday. That's an authentic decision. And that's okay. You can be in a shitty mood. I just don't want to be there for a whole week. You know, maybe I don't even want to be there for a whole day. Maybe I just want to be there for like a couple hours, 15 minutes. Because I know in tuning into my own self, physically, emotionally, and psychologically, how I feel when I'm in that luxuriating in the mess feeling and the moping versus when I am fully aligned and uncompromised. And, you know, you feel like if you've ever seen the movie Black Beauty and, you know, Black Beauty is just running unimpeded on the beach. I feel like that. You know, I'm a horse and my mane is flowing in the air and I'm galloping down the road as fast as I can. Damn, that feels good. It's way better than being like, okay, I'm stuck in a coal mine. This sucks. How do I get out of this mess? Right? And that was a Black Beauty reference. One of my favorite books since I was a little girl. So that's where we're at this month. And I've been preaching this all year long. You're like, you just keep saying the same thing over and over, Laurie. There would be a reason for that, my friends. There would be a reason for it. We have this amazing opportunity to transmute our programming into authenticity. Our experiences, negative as much as positive, have equipped us to meet the moment. And just like I said earlier, I was okay if I didn't get what I wanted. I was ready to want what I got. And that's not a loser mentality. Because if there was nothing acceptable, I wouldn't have gotten anything there and I would have gone somewhere else. I'm not going to eat liverwurst, okay? I don't like it. But if I wanted roast beef and all they had left was turkey, I'd have been fine with the turkey. Liverwurst was a no. Okay, so there's that. Important to understand your limits, my friends. As we go forward through December, it's important to dial in to where the magic actually happens. It happens in making memories. It's not about the stuff. Handmade is fine. And in fact, it's more special. Making time together, reading stories, singing carols. You can make a bunch of popcorn. Don't put butter on it. But you can make a bunch of popcorn and string it together with cranberries to make garlands, even when you don't have a lot of money. I've had to do that many times throughout the years. And I've had the big bougie Christmas tree with the fancy ornaments. I've had time to bake, and I've had times where people got gift cards. I've had time to crochet everybody something, and I've had time where, man, I was lucky to make it there on Christmas. Let go of outcomes and build experiences if you want to end the year with the best mindset ever. All right, we're going to do some patron shout outs because without patrons, there is no podcast. You can join in December. I've decided to keep the 50% off new memberships. So I know the economy's tight, but if you join at the $15 level and up, you can save 50% on annual subscriptions at the Awake Space community. So make sure you check the link in that. It's going to be fun. You'll have to, patrons find out about December discounts on readings first, and we'll talk about that in the next episode. When I talk about Uranus, I'll let you know what listener discounts are. But for right now, members get deep discounts with astrologers at wokeastrology.com, my website. All right. Thank you to our newest patrons. Here we go. We've got my flavored Patreon, Isaac, Chloe, Tara, Emily, Penny, Tara, Lisa, Creany, Aiden, Ellie, or L, Sivim Says, Casey, Adriana, Nayli, Cameron, Chris, Ms. Laura Dubs, Jared, Rosie, Kim, Test, Melv, Kelsey, Crazy, K Crazy, Alexander, JW, Miriam, Alyssa, Carly, Marsha, Kana, Deanna, Rachel, Caitlin, Nicole, Kristen, Nan53, Sharita, Lauren, Gale Force Winds, Caroline, Mel, Amy, Evie, Jaleel, Mary, Alyssa, Nicole, Honey, Joanna, Saf, Neva, Zenvoid, Kelsey, Shirley, Alex, Hopeful One 277, Sarah, Spooky Latte, Vale Crescent, Adriana, RB, Wesley, Rachel, Justin, Carmen, Hillary, Morgan, Katie, Jade, Heidi, Nicole, Bethel, Jen, the art teacher, Lilith, Salome, and McKenna. Thank you all for being patrons. Without you, there is no podcast, and that goes out to all 2,800 supporting members of the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. We have over 6,700 all told between our free, and I call them our Vibin patrons, and our paying patrons. And I want to thank you all for being members. So remember, I have an all patron event on the solstice where we do our vision boarding, our all patron event. It's super fun. We've got some patron exclusives that go to supporting patrons this month. Every single week, there's going to be something phenomenal. So I am super excited about that. So don't forget, you save 50% on annual subscriptions at the $15 level and up. We start off December with a lot of precipitation. In writing the Awake Space Astrology magazine, both the horoscopes and the predictions, I've got you pretty lined up for how to navigate this month. You can find the Awake Space Astrology magazine linked up in the Patreon shop. If you're not a member, members get that coming out this week. You'll get your sneak peeks on the horoscopes and the predictions today, December 1st. So I put those up even before they're edited. So they'll be up on December 1st, and then the magazine comes out a little later, like before the 4th, because that's the full moon. The full moon in Gemini. It's a bit stabby in the outer world, but in the inner world, it illuminates things for us. And I talk about that in the magazine as well, about how to use that energy. I'm also doing something a little different in the magazine this year. I am putting up little snippets of how to navigate 2026 for the rising signs. I thought you might enjoy that. A little gifty as we head into the season of giving. Other than that, it's a very interesting time on the planet. It's going to continue. I know everybody wants it to happen. I see a sharp decline happening this month. I don't see it necessarily. I'm okay if I'm wrong, but we could see intervention to the administration this month. We'll see what happens. It seems highly unlikely from a logic perspective, but from an astrological perspective, there's potential. So don't get your hopes up, but if it happens, well, I'll open some moe and celebrate, okay? Again, I said it would be a somber holiday season, and that could be because of weather. It could be because of world events. It could be because we're all exhausted, and it could be that we don't feel like going all out this year. This is a quieter year, a contemplative year, a time to reflect on what really matters. And when it comes down to it, that's our relationships. And we don't have to be in relationship with people that have harmed us. It's okay to be no contact. I know it's hard when people are like, but that's your mom, or that's your grandma, or whatever, your brother, your sister. And if it's been abusive, it's like, yeah, don't. People don't understand. And too many people do make excuses for people who've done things that are egregious. I was no contact for years. And I say, if somebody hadn't had strokes and the other one hadn't done a lot of work, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. Okay. Sometimes everything works out, and sometimes it doesn't. And that's okay too. As long as you work on you and don't put your value on other people and in their hands, because what they think of you is not your business, nor is it accurate or true for you. You might be an adventurer from a very conservative family. You could be a more conservative person, and I don't mean conservative politically, just somebody who doesn't take a lot of risk from a pretty risky family. You could be somebody who has strong beliefs in a family that just follows the motions, and you could be somebody who doesn't really care about strong beliefs, and maybe you're a little hedonistic, and that's okay too. However you are naturally at the core of you is okay, because that's who you came here to be. We did not come here to be carbon copies of one another. We did not come here into this existence to be the same. We did not come here to be in hegemony. We came here to be diverse in our attitudes, in our outlooks, in our physicality. Because if we were too homogenous, we would be inbred. And that is bad for the species. Just saying. All those people who want purity. Purity usually means something is very, very weak. Sometimes you require the inclusions to have strength. Sometimes you need an amalgam to have strength. Sometimes you need a mix of elements to come together to have any kind of integrity. Whether we're looking at chemistry or we're looking at geology, metallurgy, or social sciences. It is through our diversity and our vulnerability that we are strong together. And we find that out in December of 2025. We can look back on this year as a giant clusterfuck. We can. We can look at the policies. We can be mortified and horrified that people would still think fascism had any kind of viability in a modern world. And we could lament that, and we could be heartbroken, and we could lay on the ground curled up in the fetal position, and we would be wrong to do it because the bastards win that way. I'm celebrating that more people than I've ever seen in my entire life are standing up for the right thing. That average, everyday people are saying, not in my neighborhood. That people are standing up and saying, you don't get to obliterate an entire people. Not in my name. You have people staying informed and showing up with food, supplies, and a helping hand for their neighbors in droves. The best of us showing up and outdoing the worst of us. showing ever so much more bravery unarmed. You should be proud of your fellow citizens and fellow people around the world who are bravely, unequipped, showing up for what is right and true and good in the world. That is how I choose to celebrate 2025, because I wasn't certain that so many would. And I have been pleasantly surprised that the majority of humanity has shown the best of who we can be. And that is worth focusing on to remain inspired. I want to thank you, each one of you, for your comments, for your praise, for your feedback, for being an active audience here at the Awake Space Astrology Podcast, for inspiring me to go further even when I'm tired. I've been enjoying teaching the Using Your Astrology system, and I will continue to teach that in 2026. If it weren't for you, there would be no me. There'd be no podcast. I want to thank each and every one of you for doing your very best to be the very best version of you on any given day. And some days you may not feel like that's enough, but it's more than enough. You're more than enough. You are far braver than you imagine. You are stronger than you think. And I promise you in 2026, mid-year, the tide does more than turn. The gears shift exponentially. But remember, it's not everybody out there creating the future. It's us. We are, each one of us, as we focus our consciousness, as we are deliberate in our self-determination, we create the focus forward. We are the real news. I want to thank each and every one of you for being listeners. Next episode, we're looking at Uranus.